Hi everyone, I'm Yashita Saxena, the Vice President of Dubai Blockchain and Fintech Society. First of all, I'd like to welcome all speakers, panelists, and the audience here with us today. I would like to thank you all for being involved in Dubai Blockchain and Fintech Society's first ever event. Being part of this society has given me the opportunity to connect with other like-minded individuals and share my thoughts and ideas, as well as learn more about blockchain and fintech. I'm really excited to see what every single one of you have to say at this platform today. And I hope that you not only enjoy this event, but take it as an opportunity to expand on your knowledge by listening to other speakers and panel discussions. Good luck to everyone, and don't forget to have fun. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nanki Singh, and I'm the president and founder of the Dubai Blockchain and Fintech Society. No doubt, 2020 and 2021 have been years of unprecedented events. First, we were in lockdown for the better part of the summer break. High school exams were cancelled, and I somehow found myself with an awful lot of time on my hands. It was then when I first started reading about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and the blockchain network. And I first learned of the power this new and exciting technology had to drastically revolutionize how our industries function. So I was quite surprised to know that many people had no idea what on earth blockchain was. For most, the term blockchain is synonymous with Bitcoin, the first and largest decentralized cryptocurrency. This isn't entirely accurate. Blockchain itself is a unique and powerful tool which can transform more than just the way that we transact goods. Now, I was motivated to educate my peers, the future leaders of tomorrow, on a technology that can transform our lives for the better. So I founded the Dubai Blockchain and Fintech Society, a platform for blockchain, computer science, and economics enthusiasts, established with the aim of promoting the exchange of ideas and information amongst the leading schools in the UAE. Alongside my peers, Yashita, Kwayesh, and Zainab, we have been successful in integrating blockchain and fintech clubs in a number of schools and educating students throughout the secondary school. Furthermore, we have led a series of interviews on our social media platforms, garnering support from leading experts in the industry. Before I conclude, I would like to wish our speakers and panelists a very, very good luck for the event. I know that they've put in an extraordinary amount of effort in preparation for it, and I'm very excited to see what they have put forward. And I hope that the viewers at home learn a little something along the way. Now, I'd like to pass the floor to Zainab Heather.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Zainab Haider, and I'm the DC ambassador for DBFS, and I'm also the social media manager. So before I begin with my speech, I'd just like to say a huge shout out to all the panelists and speakers on this call. Your hard work is not going to notice. We're all really proud of you, and we're really excited to see what all you can offer for us today. It's really been motivational to us and honestly touch inspiring how involved you have all been with us through all the difficulties we've encountered together. And again, I'm just really proud of everybody here.
Hi everyone, my name is Kwajda Kiani and I am the Chief Operating Officer for the Dubai Blockchain and Fintech Society, as well as the Dubai College Ambassador. I would just once again like to echo what Nanaki, Yashitha and Zainab have said, for just saying a huge thank you for all to be here today. You've clearly seemed to have put in a lot of preparation to this event, and I just want to wish you good luck for your panel discussions and your speeches today. And I would like to briefly outline the structure of the event. So if I just share my screen. This is how we hope to run the event. Unfortunately, due to some unforeseen technical difficulties, we have had to push the event around 15 minutes back. However, the structure will remain the same. So we'll begin with this opening speech, and the main event will consist of 3 blockchain use cases: cryptocurrency, healthcare, and supply chain management in that order. Between cryptocurrency and healthcare, we will have a 10-minute guest speaker interview, and as well as between healthcare and supply chain management, we'll have a 5-minute break for you guys to maybe grab a drink or just use the toilet quickly, and so that you're fully engaged for the remaining of the webinar. I would like to just once again thank you all for being here, And without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker for the night, Rishit Chatterjee, who will be presenting on blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
Am I audible? All right, cool. So, in the increasingly volatile age of internet security, regular transactions hold little value. Unsecured transactions hold none. I bid you welcome to the internet, a new world that we created. The all-encompassing void that processes the lives and lifestyles of billions with every passing second, the untouchable curtain against the worst of humanity, and home to an ocean of insecure prey. With the sheer number of people on the internet and the beyond biblical amounts of data that we give it to process, it's understandable that archaic economic traditions and just blatant trust in the system as a whole is something that's approaching obsolescence, approaching dying trend. Indeed, with the personal freedoms we find that we're given, we're no longer as trusting of the unknown as we would have been in years past. Online watchdogs now shadow our every move, and predators seek to bleed us dry by pinpricking the minutest cracks in our virtual exteriors. So, what's a system of billions meant to fall back on when what's regular leads us to exposure and insecurity? The answer lies in this conference's title, Blockchain. But first, what is blockchain? Blockchain is a massive system of decentralized databases that works on the system of blocks, where individual collections of data are accumulated on a single block. These blocks are connected to one another in a chain, a system of individual entities where every factor in the equation might view the entire chain at any given moment. Every block in the chain possesses a unique hash that you can compare that to a fingerprint. It's a unique ID that a block possesses based on the data within it. Each block possesses its own hash, as well as the hash of the preceding block in the chain. And any tampering to any singular block, even to the minutest mote of data, would change the hash. As the next block in the chain possesses only the original hash of the preceding block, the chain or the connection of hash imprints is invalidated and broken. And as we may view the entire blockchain at any given moment, the law of the mob that participates in that chain gains precedence and provides the security of multiple anonymous watchdogs. You could think of it in terms of an electrical circuit. Like in a series connection of devices, if one's destroyed, like in this case of blockchain, if a single block is tampered with, then the entire system beyond that one device, or in blockchain's case, block, is made invalid in terms of the chain. And every operator working on those pieces of the network is alerted, because obviously if what you're working on is invalidated, then obviously you're going to be made aware of what invalidates it. It's the equivalent of flashing a spotlight on a burglar, or taking that as another real life metaphor to make it easier to understand. But having described blockchain as a whole, it really poses the question, how is it relevant in my topic? That's cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies themselves, what are they? Vaguely speaking, we can consider them the future of transactions. They're the overhaul of the whole barter-based system of monetary made relevant to the post-information era internet. Cryptocurrencies are a digital commodity. They don't really physically exist, but they're a form of virtual currency. So what makes them so appealing? Several million pairs of eyes and locked doors. Cryptocurrencies, as the name suggests, are secured via cryptography, which is a blanket term for all the security measures placed on it. And integral to note is that cryptocurrencies base themselves on a security based off of a blockchain background. Decentralization ensures the safety and security of all users making use of cryptocurrencies, and the semi-anonymity provides another layer of safety and security. So let's discuss, why are people making use of these virtual currencies beyond the safety aspect? Obviously, there are systems which allow for safety outside of cryptocurrency. So what's the hype behind blockchain-powered protected technologies? For one, it gets rid of the problem of regulations and third-party middlemen. Two parties are free to conduct transfers between one another and make use of public and private keys for securing the same. And government and bankers do not have any reason, any opportunity, or any chance to involve themselves into this peer-to-peer transaction. With the elimination of a third-party regulation due to their anonymous and decentralized nature, the need for third-party fees is eliminated and makes the commercial trade process cheaper and more appealing on the part of users. And this only remains one of the advantages of cryptocurrencies. Others include lower international transfer fees, discretionary protections, a peer-to-peer focus, and nigh universal accessibility. Cryptocurrency, through its crowning protection of any lack of regulation, also faces its own greatest problem: volatility. Since no government or financial authority is actually regulating cryptocurrency, it lacks its own inherent value because it's not even tied to any physical commodity that might secure and give it a constant value. And so it's in a bubble that's ready to pop at any moment. In fact, a bubble that has popped in recent times, which has left several amateur investors into the cryptocurrency chain wary of further throwing their wealth into a wildly fluctuating pool left to its own devices to change itself. Facing such volatility, are the security measures that blockchain provides truly enough to counteract that rampant volatility that this entity-less value holds? Beyond, its disadvantages, it also holds a significant chokehold on the environment, something that's increasingly important in this day and age, in this dying earth. Due to the sheer number of devices used to mine cryptocurrency tokens, it takes a colossal amount of energy, really. For example, let me put this in perspective. Bitcoin alone, the most popular cryptocurrency, consumes enough electricity to rival several nations like Malaysia, Ukraine, Argentina, or Poland. Considering the adverse effect that has on the environment, I very much doubt that cryptocurrency remains along the path of a future rooted in sustainability. Our planet's health will definitely matter more than petty security as we come to the end of our tenure on Earth. Beyond the myriad uses and advantages and sheer differences cryptocurrency and blockchain as a whole have as compared to more conventional and I could even say ancient methods of currency exchange, they have their own can of worms that really sparks debate on whether they're really worthy of being drawn towards the future or not. Considering everything, what really washes out the good and the bad? Is it that the advantages trump over the significant disadvantages, or are the disadvantages just too great to ignore? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Rishit. It was such a great insight into blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and I hope our audience and viewers enjoyed the speech and the information and the metaphors as much as I did. So now I would like to introduce our two panelists for cryptocurrencies, Mia James and Omar Yassin. And I would like to open up the discussion with this broad question. Do you think the benefits of using blockchain in cryptocurrencies outweigh the costs?
Okay, so to answer that question, we have to delve into lots of different topics and points into cryptocurrencies, but I'd like to begin with just the main sole purpose of a cryptocurrency in the beginning. That's the only way you can tell if the benefits outweigh the disadvantages. So a lot of people may question cryptocurrencies because of their volatility, and I believe that that's one major disadvantage or struggle point that will stop it from being viable in the future as a mode of transaction and exchange. Um, so yeah, a lot of people can see the purpose of cryptocurrencies in two ways. One, that it's an actual currency like the dollar, the pound, or a way to trade, in stocks. And as long as it's seen as a way to trade in stocks, I believe it will never be unvolatile enough to be used as a mode of transaction. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. And also, talking about volatility, I'd just like to use an example of Bitcoin because it was priced at around $450 per token in 2016. And then it jumped to about $16,000 a token in 2018, dropped back to $3,100, and then has since increased to more than $60,000. So I think that's a very good example of how volatile cryptocurrencies can be, especially Bitcoin, which is just the largest cryptocurrency. And I agree with you, Omar. It's not looking good for the future if it wants to be used as a stock because of how volatile it is.
Right, and that links back to what Richard said about the bubble that might burst at any moment. We saw when China banned trading in crypto, what happened to Bitcoin, when high identity profiles like Elon Musk mentions how a company won't be exchanging or transferring money using Bitcoin, how they suddenly drop, and that won't ever make it trustworthy enough to be used as an actual currency.
And there's also the risk of illegal activity due to the anonymity of blockchains. So while confidentiality on the blockchain network protects users from hacks and preserves privacy, it also allows for illegal trading and activity on the blockchain network. So I think the most well-known example would be the Silk Road example, which is an online dark web drug marketplace operating from February 2011 until October 2013, when it was shut down by the FBI. So I think the whole aura of illegal activity happening through cryptocurrencies really gives it a bad atmosphere almost.
Exactly, and when you remove the middleman from transactions, the bankers, the credit card companies, service providers, the whole transaction just becomes unregulated, and you don't necessarily trust what humans or entities in that transaction might be up to.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess we could also move on to the benefits, because despite all the negative things that can happen, there's also many benefits. So obviously Rashid mentioned a lot of them, but I think another one would be that transactions placed through Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have no set hours, and they can be used 24/7. So normal transactions placed through a central authority can take a few hours, maybe even a few days, to actually see the funds in your account to actually go through. Whereas Bitcoin and blockchains are working 24 hours a day, every single day of the year. So they can be completed in as little as 10 minutes and can be considered secure after just a few hours, which is particularly useful for cross-border trades and international transactions.
Exactly. So you can transact money and trade it all over the world at any time, sorry, and with no to extremely minimum cost. So whereas you'd have to pay a percentage of the money transacted to a bank, for example, you have to pay to start a bank account or get a credit card. You wouldn't have to do that with any cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, carry on.
And then another benefit of that is cryptocurrencies is obviously this can be viewed as a benefit and also a disadvantage, and that's user trust. So if you go out now and survey a lot of people about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, all the things they'll tell you is that they don't trust it because it's not a physical commodity they can hold or something that holds value. However, if you think about it in a way as real physical money is just paper that we give it its value, that kind of starts to build more trust for cryptocurrencies. That becomes a benefit and advantage of it.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that it's not physical paper means that people can't steal it in a way. It's all on the web, so in a way that is a benefit, yeah, despite the lack of trust in it.
And sorry, go on.
Okay, so I would say another benefit of blockchains in cryptocurrencies is that it can give those in countries with unstable currencies or unstable financial infrastructure a more stable currency with more applications and a wider network of individuals and institutions that they can do business with, both domestically and internationally. So also in countries which have been war-torn or have governments that lack any real infrastructure to provide identification, it can be used by citizens who have no state identification. They may not have any access to savings or brokerage accounts, so they can use cryptocurrencies as a way to safely store their wealth.
Right, and actually, just to add on to that, a few days ago I was out shopping, and I found in a few, stores that there were lots of signs at the top saying we trade using Bitcoin or you can pay using Bitcoin. That just shows how prominent it's becoming and how that's probably a great thing because it was all what's called luxurious items. So you can't really cryptocurrencies really decrease the chance of fraud if you're paying using them.
It's been widely accepted.
And then there's quite the biggest disadvantage. I think Richard mentioned it, the sustainability of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I believe they said that the last Bitcoin mined ever will be in 2146 or sometime around that. However, it's probably a lot before that due to the technological advances that might happen. For example, Bitcoin miners need a lot of capacity in computers and new technology, so that will advance more. So that's kind of an advantage, but however, at the same time, it's not very environmentally friendly.
Yeah, it's definitely not environmentally friendly. And I've also read that mining costs of just one coin, excluding hardware expenses, are about $5,000 to $7,000, which is honestly just ridiculous. And yeah, hopefully technology will advance and it will go down in the future. And also, I'm hoping that Bitcoin mining farms and other cryptocurrency mining farms will be set up to use solar power or wind power or excess natural gas from fracking sites or something, so that they can become more sustainable in the future.
Yeah, and I also believe Bitcoin mining, it kind of tackles the point where people say, we're going to be putting people out of job, bankers out of jobs, credit card companies out of jobs, people will lose their jobs. However, you kind of, equal out with these Bitcoin mining opportunities, where you could probably make a lot more money if cryptocurrencies become more prominent.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yep, I think that is all.
Thank you so much for that. I honestly want to say thank you so much, Mia, Omar, and Rishith. I was so fascinated by all that you discussed, and I just love to see how the points are bouncing back and forth, and how you discussed not only the points but also use cases, things you had in your real life that you encountered. And I just think overall it was so engrossing. I really hope our viewers enjoyed it as well. And now, before we move on to our second use case, which is healthcare, we have a short interview that we would like to play for you. So I will just hand over to Nanaki now.
All right, so hi everyone. We've had the honor and the opportunity to interview Wasim Merbi, who is the CEO of Wearafax. And in this interview, he will talk to us about his work, how blockchain manages the issue of transparency, and the method in which blockchain provides a cost-effective solution to transacting. So, attempt to share my screen. Can all of you see this? Okay, and hello everyone. And can you hear that? Okay, wonderful. I'm Nanki Singh, and I'm here with Mr. Wasim Merbi from Wearafax. First of all, Mr. Werby, I would like to say a huge thank you for joining us today. I'm extremely grateful that you were able to take the time out to share your valuable insights with the members of this community. I'm sure that this interview will be extremely useful for them. So let's get started.
Thank you so much, Nana.
So let's just get started with the questions. First of all, can you give us a brief introduction of your work? What is the profile of a typical client, and how do your clients benefit from the work you do?
Sure. So what we do, so at Wearafax, we are a traceability company. We provide digital identity, digital twins for product to bring those products to life and allow for retailers, consumers, all the stakeholders along the value chain to interact with that product in a way that adds value to them. So think about a consumer that is buying a product that requires validation that this product is sustainable or good for his family. Then you just scan that QR code, which is the digital identity, and then you're able to get all of the confirmations and check the certificates, check from where it came, if it's sourced locally and therefore having a lower kind of impact on the environment, and so on and so forth. And then you can create on top of those a number of interactions with those consumers to be able to drive more value in terms of like understanding what are their preferences, how can you propose to them certain personalized promotions and stuff like that, while maintaining the data privacy, which is the most important part.
Okay.
So in terms of our clients, our typical clients are the brands or the manufacturers of consumer goods. So these could be anything from, currently we're dealing with, for example, we're interacting with Nestle or any of those consumer goods companies. Think Puma, Adidas, stuff like that. They are all part of our group. As well as retailers that want to offer to their consumers the option to sort the product based on sustainable rating. Based on, if you were buying a white shirt tomorrow and you want to know which one is the most sustainable white shirt, today you're only able to look at the pricing, right? Or recommendation, but you're not able to sort it by sustainability. That's where we come in.
Wow, it's very cool. So can you please share some insight into how blockchain provides complete transparency?
Yeah, absolutely. If you allow me 1 second, I'll try to share my screen and just show you a couple of slides. Yeah?
Yeah, wonderful.
Can you see my screen?
It's not showing up for me at the moment, but I think it's just taking a second to load.
Because I can see it on the other device. Is it? You're able to see it, yeah? So yeah, just I won't stay too long on all the slides, but basically our solution helps us, every individual, to be able to really think about the lifestyle that they are following and how it affects the climate around us, how it affects the planet around us. Every one of us is, emitting into the world basically 3 to 15 metric tons of greenhouse gases, or CO2, for example. And for all of us that have children, that's not the world that we want our children to inherit. And we know that most of the consumers, they actually are willing to pay a certain premium in order for them to check and research and validate and then vote with their own wallet, pay extra, pay a certain premium, but get products that are more sustainable. But until today, there hasn't been a solution that allows for that to happen, right? And we'll get to the side of the data privacy and the blockchain. But I think it's important for you to know the overall. So we are the first validated transparency solution for consumers. We achieved the transparency by uploading all the different certificates there and making sure that it is done to the highest industry standard, and it's auditable and it's immutable ledger. So nothing changes once we. And in terms of our business model, the companies would then pay for our services. So the manufacturer or the brands, and we integrated. And this is a typical kind of an example. The QR code on the right is an example of a digital identity. This digital identity equates to a certain repository of all the data that the manufacturer or the brand owner wants to share with the different stakeholders along the value chain. When it comes to sustainability, what we do is we rate every product versus industry standards. And this is done to the highest standard in the world, which is, for example, for garment, it is the Higgs index. So how much water is it used? Is it local product? What percentage of the fabric is recycled versus virgin? How many liters of water is the material used to the bleach, for example? Is it a bad one it will kill all the fish in the river, or is it a good one which is biodegradable? What percentage of the garment they are actually giving an incentive to the consumers to return those products back to material, And in the end, we're powering retail on to be able to offer the consumers the option to sort by sustainability. And we're available on all of the leading platforms for co-selling our solutions. So these are Microsoft, AWS, SAP, and so on and so forth. And we love the fact that we're finding so many retailers that are sharing our values, that have similar focus. Like, for example, our client Auri in Asia, they are a community-focused retailer, and we're able to do that together and bring more to the world. Now, in terms of our competitive advantage, it is how to empower the consumers. Everyone else that is doing traceability, they are doing it as business to business. They're not really focused on the consumer empowerment, and that's how we're different. And just to quickly jump to your question, which is the technical assessment. I don't know if I have it here actually. I have it maybe in another deck, but basically the reason why we are using blockchain is because we and not any blockchain, because the reason why we are using permission blockchain is to make sure that all of the applications are GDPR compliant. They are privacy regulations compliant. They are allowing for companies to trust that their data cannot be then sold to their competitors. That maybe an employee. No one has access. We are a zero knowledge protocol, and this zero knowledge is really only possible as a data management practice with the use of permission blockchain.
Okay. Wow, that's very cool. So how does your company utilize blockchain to provide a cost-effective solution to transacting data? I guess that's the most important thing here. How do you stay profitable?
Yeah. So today, with the spread of the cloud computers, you have all the cloud providers from Azure to Oracle to etc., who are charging you, on a monthly fee. So it's no longer as expensive as buying equipment yourself and so on and so forth. The blockchain that comes on top, it's also not a licensed product that you have to develop everything yourself. You're actually also getting that from the same providers. So they offer you blockchain platform as a service built on top of, for example, whatever infrastructure you are leasing from them.
Okay, all right. Okay, so hopefully that was a little insightful for a lot of you. A real life example, someone who uses blockchain in the real world, and it's very different from, I guess, the more generic use case in cryptocurrencies that we tend to hear about.
Hi everyone. So now we are going to move on to our second use case, which is healthcare. Now, blockchain systems are widely used in safely tracking and monitoring healthcare data for patients. I would now like to welcome our speaker for healthcare, who is Ajay Kumar.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we are all familiar with the age-old saying, "Your health is your wealth." In these unusually challenging times of a global pandemic, it is now more paramount than ever that humanity starts to develop its healthcare infrastructure. Since the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen how medical institutions had to bear the burden of increased numbers of hospitalizations, as well as conducting testing and vaccinations on a large scale. And this outbreak has most certainly revealed the weaknesses in healthcare systems worldwide, as well as showing the greater toll on healthcare with already existing problems such as drug traceability, data protection, patient record management, and the high cost of new innovations. I think with the use of blockchain, we will be able to ensure that everyone on the planet has access to good quality healthcare. And in the past decade, we have seen how this technology has revolutionized a wide range of industries, in particular, the healthcare one. Looking ahead to the future, we will need to ensure that medical institutions around the world are well prepared to face off any adversity. As previously explained by the speaker of cryptocurrencies, a blockchain is simply just a set of blocks containing a data which form together to create a blockchain system, in which each block has a unique hash function which protects the data inside the block. Now, you might be wondering, how can blockchain be used in a healthcare system? First of all, healthcare systems around the world are struggling to meet the needs of their patients due to problems in recording patient medical history. This means that healthcare providers cannot give the adequate and necessary care for their patients if there are any faults or inaccuracies in the patient's medical history. In a study conducted by the Johns Hopkins University in 2016, the published research revealed that the third leading cause of death in the USA was medical errors, and this resulted in poorly coordinated care as well as failures to meet any patient treatment requirements. As of 2019, the US saw 50% of clinical trials remaining unreported and 40% of existing medical records containing many misleading errors. With a blockchain system, the records can be easily preserved, and anything that's been amended, such as lab results, prescriptions, can be stored on the blockchain with a unique hash function. Since each hash function is unique, it means that the data can only be decoded by the person who owns the data, in which the doctor can access the records without having to have any of the patient's privacy compromised. One of the leading companies in this industry is Medical Chain, which is working to implement blockchain-based systems with many healthcare providers. And this will certainly give us one step further in ensuring that healthcare is accessible to all and ensure that things are done in a much more sustainable way. When it comes to how effective the security systems are in terms of protecting healthcare records, we have seen that there have been many attempted security breaches which have compromised the safety of millions of patients' records. To give a recent example, the NHS in the UK have reported more than 1,000 illegal cyber attacks targeting patient records in the previous year. Despite there being strict rules and regulations surrounding the protection of patient data, using a blockchain system will increase the security of patient data without it being compromised. Many healthcare companies are tackling this issue by using a cryptographic stamp, which is attached to a specific block in the blockchain. And these stamps act as a beacon which allow the block on the blockchain to be traced to its origin and each data being protected. Thus, any corruption attempted on the blockchain is immediately spotted in real time. Now, I can go on and on listing many more examples of blockchain's applications in healthcare, such as how it's being used to detect and prevent the sales of counterfeit drugs by protecting the supply chain, or how it's being made a lot easier to pay for healthcare using cryptocurrencies. But in essence, we have seen how beneficial it's been used in the scientific industry. Around 63% of healthcare organizations will invest more than $1 million into blockchain. In fact, the global blockchain technology market as a whole in the healthcare sector is set to reach $500 billion by 2022, with an annual growth rate of 60%. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we can expect to see a bright future for this technology as we progress further into the future to make healthcare more sustainable and inclusive for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajay, for that really good speech. And now to welcome all our panelists, Abdulaziz, Shoria, and Rohit.
First of all, before we begin our discussion, we can see that blockchain has had many positive contributions to society. Now, my first question would be, how can we see blockchain providing the same beneficial outcomes to people in the future?
Hello, so I'm Abdulaziz. I'm going to answer this question. So specifically in healthcare, blockchain is mainly used as a method to store and verify patient information. So I read some time ago that in Estonia, 95% of the health data and 99% of the prescription data is maintained by blockchain technology. And they've been doing this for, I think, since 2012. So that's, I feel, is interesting. So the benefits of storing such information on a blockchain technology and how this kind of benefits us is that it has the tamper resistance of blockchain. So it's impossible for anyone to kind of interfere with the with the database, which is what has happened with the NHS, which you've mentioned, Ajay. It also provides a faster, cheaper, and better patient care. So everyone has an updated and constantly up-to-date health records and that can be rapidly accessed. This could also avoid miscommunication between different healthcare professionals and who are caring for the same patients. So mistakes that can happen due to miscommunication can be prevented, and faster diagnosis. And that could, save many lives. It could also enhance healthcare in cases such as paying medical bills. So just like with crypto and how transactions are secure and anonymous and verified, the same could happen with medical payments. So that's kind of all I could say right now. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I think when we look more forward towards the future, we can definitely see these outcomes increasing worldwide. Now, when we talk about blockchain, we need to consider that this is a new and emerging technology which has many factors that need to be considered. Now, there are many potential risks and concerns which need to be verified. So I think, Shoya, do you have anything to say about this?
Actually, I would like to ask that
Yeah.
question. So obviously, blockchain has a lot of positives in healthcare, but nothing is perfect, and it comes with a range of disadvantages, some being sustainability. So blockchain has many environmental impacts because it needs a lot of energy, and the increase in energy needed can cause is a huge factor of global warming. And a study from Cambridge University also found that mining Bitcoin consumes more energy per year than the entire nation of Argentina. So this shows how environmentally impacting it is. And during a day and age where we are becoming more and more aware of global warming's impact on the earth, it's not a very good look on blockchain. There are also some technological disadvantages because it's very expensive to set it up, and this could make it very redundant if all hospitals don't upload their information onto the database. And as you said, it's a very new technology, so there won't be many people who are specialized, and it'll be harder for them to understand how it works. Data can also be breached because there's a lot of security threats involving blockchain, and this is because it's very easy to access the data, and 40% of healthcare breaches are from inside. So this means that the higher levels of accessibility could encourage higher rates of inside privacy breaches, and this could make people more skeptical about Bitcoin and cause people to potentially boycott it as well.
Indeed, and obviously when we look forward to the future, we also have to make sure that we take into the environmental implications which blockchain has. Now, when we talk about technology in general, it has revolutionized the way in which we communicate and interact with the rest of the world and other people, like how we are doing right now. Now, how can the doctor and patient relationship be enhanced using blockchain?
I'll answer this question. The impact of implementing blockchain technology will be felt by physicians and patients in the healthcare industry in different ways. Like physicians will be able to sign on and promptly enter instructions into a patient's report, regardless of where the patient's report is located. This is true for both telemedicine and in-person appointments. A truly patient-centered health record will also promote innovation as physicians and other clinicians, labs, pharmacists organize to visit patients at home or in medical care centers because they're no longer reliant on costly hospital infrastructure to manage patient information and payment. The blockchain's capacity to identify individual contributions from uh, care team members would reduce fraud and more transparently distribute payment for services between for services than today's opaque contracts between health plans and hospitals. Finally, because they're not governed by the hospital, patient-centered patient-centered health records will be trusted with significantly more sensitive social, environmental, and family information, as well as the power to impose for more personal and diverse privacy regulations. Yeah,
Yes, so when moving forward to the future, we can see that with blockchain's application, healthcare will be more centered around the patient and what their needs and requirements are. Now, when we talk about the advantages and disadvantages of blockchain in healthcare, there are many which come to mind. First of all, let's talk about the administrative side of blockchain. So what are the advantages when we look into this specific area?
Yes. So as I mentioned before, everyone has the up-to-date version of the database. So in the US, there are 35, it could help with 35% of the denied claims of the patients who struggle to access the information they need due to misidentified patients and missing patient information. It also prevents, it also helps hospitals and clinics. They don't really need to store files anymore since there's not a database that can be accessed with a private key. It also reduces costs as the middleman of this is all taken out. Since all the files are recorded, analyzed, and sent to a digital operator. And the cost of retrieving those files is actually really cheap. This also allows a larger volume of transactions to be handled by the network. And also, it's also decentralized. No company, no individual, no one really owns the blockchain system. So that's the benefit of that.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. There are other advantages too, like because the information is validated by a consensus system and saved across several nodes, as mentioned before, it makes distributed denial of service cyber attacks and record manipulation extremely difficult because consensus systems generate confidence through transparency. Middlemen that take a portion of transactions can be eliminated. Uh, Easier access with new breakthroughs in digital technology, such as the cloud. Doctors may also access files from anywhere in the uh, world in an emergency, which can save lives. For example, if a patient is rushed to the ER, a doctor cannot legally do surgery or provide necessary care unless they know what the patient is allergic to or if they have any underlying illnesses. A doctor can provide help faster using blockchain since they don't have to question a patient before working on them, and they don't have to worry about getting false information from the patient if they've had a concussion, for example. Smart contracts that are automated can speed up transactions by eliminating the need for manual oversight. And my final advantage would be that there is better communication between hospitals, which can help track diseases and outbreaks more effectively.
Yes, but blockchain also imposes some disadvantages because storing large records on the blockchain, such as full electronic medical records or genetic data records, it could be inefficient and costly. And also, it could be difficult to query data within a blockchain. So it could like limit research and uses of data. Um, it also may not be able to handle larger data sets like CT scans. And as said before, data can be breached really easily, and then this can make people a little bit skeptical, although it allows doctors to gain access to patients' records in very needed times if it's a life or death situation.
Yes, and in conclusion, we can see that blockchain can work really well in tandem with the healthcare industry as well as the scientific industry as a whole. However, it should also be noted that there are many different factors and things that need to be taken into consideration, such as the environmental implication as well as the cost of trying to implement such a grand scheme, especially amongst many underdeveloped nations, and also how we can store such large volumes of data. So most definitely in the future, we can say that blockchain does have a bright future indeed for healthcare, but still we need to make sure that it does progress in a sustainable way. Thank you.
Thank you all the healthcare panelists and speaker for that really interesting discussion. Now we're going to move towards a 5-minute break, and then we'll all join back here at 6:15.
All right, hi guys. So now we're going to move on to one of the most significant uses of blockchain networks, which is supply chain management. In supply chain management, blockchain networks are used to monitor goods throughout the production line, right from obtaining new raw materials to final products being sold to consumers. I would now like to welcome our speaker for supply chain management, Viha Kedia.
Thank you, Yashita. I'm going to keep this short and sweet, but supply chain is very important, which you'll understand throughout my speech. Now, managing today's supply chains is extraordinarily complex. In fact, one shipment of goods from East Africa to Europe can pass through roughly 30 people and organizations, involving more than 200 interactions. And due to this complexity and the lack of transparency in the current supply chains, the role of blockchain for the supply chain is becoming an increasing area of interest. Because the modern supply chain is broken. It is no longer like a linear sequential chain from raw material to final product. The current supply chain is multi-tiered. It's an ecosystem of suppliers, partners, and customers, all working together much, much more closely. This is multi-region, multi-geography, and increasingly multi-industry. So it's creaking under its own complexity. It's incredibly difficult for customers to truly know the value of products because there's a significant lack of transparency in our current system. In a similar way, it's extremely difficult to investigate supply chains when there's a suspicion of like illegal or unethical practices. They can also be highly efficient as vendors and suppliers try to connect the dots between who needs what, when, and how. So without visibility, transparency, and trust between potentially thousands of players in this web of a supply chain, the modern supply chain cannot function effectively. So blockchain allows the potential to deliver on all of these factors. So what are the key features of blockchain in the supply chain? Well, the first thing is consensus, because for a transaction to be valid, all the parties have to agree. No new blocks are created or changes made without any of this consensus. So for this supply chain, blockchain technology can be used to bring consensus to a wide range of transactions, such as payment, warehouse management, transportation, and delivery. This builds trust as all parties have a single view of the transaction. The second thing is provenance. Blockchain allows you to know exactly where raw materials or products originated and where they are in the supply chain. With provenance, supply chain professionals can quickly see who owned assets and at what time. And finally, immutability. It's virtually impossible to tamper with any entry in the distributed ledger. There are multiple copies of each entry, and they all have to be changed simultaneously. So it makes it very difficult to falsify things like working conditions, which I know many people are concerned about in this day and age. So what are the key benefits of supply chain for the supply chain? Well, first of all, it replaces the slow and manual processes. Many supply chain processes, especially those in the lower supply tiers, are slow and almost entirely reliant on paper. So blockchain can replace these manual processes with digital processes that deliver new levels of visibility and transparency. The second thing is strengthening traceability. The track and trace style of blockchain and supply chain is one of the most popular features for the future. The supply chain transparency gives greater visibility across supply chain operations, leading to a better utilization of inventory, better delivery times, improved quality, and a reduced loss of revenue. And we've already talked about how blockchain protects the integrity of both the information and the transaction. That means there are fewer errors and disputes. The entire project is accelerated as there's less need for product recalls or refilling a missed order, getting an order wrong. And speed is, of course, a vital component in a robust supply chain. And finally, creating an ethical supply chain. I think this is one of the most important benefits, and it's very important to me as well, because nowadays teenagers, especially teenagers and many of the 21st century citizens, like, we want to know where our products come from, how ethical they are, how sustainable they are. And blockchain gives us unique ability to understand the operation of the company producing them. And this provenance and ledger system means that we get to know about the working conditions and the warehousing conditions to ensure that we're buying sustainably. Now, what are the actual use cases in the supply chain? Well, I'm sure the cryptocurrency speaker already talked about this, but supply chain finance is a very key use case. It can increase the efficiency of invoice processing and provide more transparent and secure actions. For example, invoice payment terms are usually 30 days and often much longer. By combining supply chain finance and blockchain technology, you can apply smart contracts that trigger immediate payments as soon as the product is delivered and signed for. The second thing is supply chain logistics. We know the complexity of this whole system, and the result is that suppliers, providers, and customers interact via third-party entities rather than directly with each other. The promise of blockchain in the supply chain is that these transactions can be verified, recorded, and coordinated autonomously without these third parties. So an entire level of complexity from the supply chain would be eliminated. The third thing is cold chain traceability. Now, food and pharmaceutical products often have similar storage and shipping needs. Blockchain allied to sensors on products can record temperature, humidity, vibration, and other environmental conditions in the supply chain. For example, blockchain in the food supply chain is effectively used in Walmart's innovative use of the technology to track the provenance and condition of its pork products coming from China. With the success of blockchain in the supply chain, Walmart now requires all its spinach and lettuce suppliers to deploy the technology. And finally, food safety. There are many food safety issues, including cross-contamination, which are very difficult to track and ensure that their isolation is given. Companies including Nestle, Walmart, and Unilever are using blockchain to reduce the time it takes to pinpoint and remove the source of foodborne illnesses within the supply chain. So potentially, we have much healthier foods. But we still have a long way to go. Blockchain and supply chain is not fully developed yet, but it has a potential for fast-paced and robust supply chains and a strong bond between supplier and customer, making it an important tool for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Viha, for your speech. That was extremely insightful, and I hope everyone learned a lot from it. Now I would like to welcome our panelists, who are Leila Abdullah, Mariam Haider, and Pranav Lalwani. Thank you.
Okay, I'll kick off the panelist discussion by asking Leila, what is a real-life example of where blockchain has been implemented into a supply chain, and how well has it worked?
I think that IBM is the perfect example to show just how far blockchain reaches. IBM has not only implemented blockchain in the traditional way, which is shipping and trade, but also in terms of food supply, as Viha mentioned. The IBM Food Initiative was built in collaboration with Walmart. Walmart is a major US company and a household name. I'm sure we've all heard of it. This just shows how far and how big blockchain has become. The main aim was to track food down the supply chain. This was in order to overcome previous problems because it was almost impossible to track items before. I mean, if something was contaminated, we couldn't exactly isolate it. But blockchain means that everything is recorded and sent out to everyone. This makes it a lot easier. In terms of global trade, IBM has collaborated with Maersk. This is a Danish shipping company to create secure and efficient global trade. They've created TradeLens, which is a global blockchain shipping solution. After adding 2 major ocean cargo carriers in May 2019, now nearly half of the world's ocean container data is captured by TradeLens. This just shows how far blockchain reaches, not only in the food supply, but in terms of global trade, and how it is going to be permanent within the supply chain community.
Thanks, Leila. Maria, moving on from that, how could blockchain technology potentially change the food supply chain?
I mean, starting off, there are a number of ways, but I think the most unique functions of blockchain technology that are particularly helpful with revolutionizing the food chain is deterring food tampering and fraud and false advertising, decreasing chances of food spoiling, and identifying wastage in food supply chains. And one real life example, use of blockchain technology changing the food supply chain is in Walmart, as all of us have talked about. They have been using blockchain technology to digitize their supply chain and reduce the time it takes to check the source of contamination. In 2020, an E. coli outbreak that spanned 19 states and hospitalized 20 people were traced back to leafy greens in the US. And the industry spent millions and millions of dollars notifying the public, trying to trace it back, and removing the contaminated vegetables from the market. Nowadays, because of blockchain technology, Walmart requires all suppliers of leafy green vegetables to upload data onto a blockchain that tracks produce right back to the farm it came from. However, people can argue that inputting the needed data isn't very time efficient. It is very cost effective when tracing back contaminated food. So versus the weeks long manual process. And implementing blockchain technology in food supply chain is crucial and invaluable in terms of tracing back contaminated food and from an orderly standpoint.
So what do you think is the most effective or sustainable way to reduce the supply chain transaction cost?
Well, one way, the most obvious way as well, is to identify costly workflow inefficiencies. So try to uncover hidden expenses in supply chain management. Although most companies just focus on reducing transportation costs, you can also look for stunts in workflow or instances where employees are working manually to complete a task that could instead be automated. So this would also reduce product packaging and work time, which I'm sure all of us would enjoy. Also, try to diversify your careers or modes and forecast demand with sales planning to enforce further sustainability and efficiency into your company. You can also ask your employees to point out inefficiencies they've noticed, but that you probably wouldn't have picked up. And consider hiring a consultant to take an impartial view on your operations as well, if you genuinely can't find any inefficiencies. Additionally, you can diversify your careers and modes. So you could be missing out on a competitively priced options if you're not constantly building relationships with careers. So failing to diversify your career relationships also puts your company at a high risk of being stuck in a lurch if your sole career suddenly goes out of business. Because if it does, then you'll definitely lose money if you cannot keep your customers happy by delivering their products. So poor career diversity inevitably puts you in a lose-lose situation.
So Leila, putting aside the benefits that Mariam and I talked about, what are some disadvantages or possible issues with using blockchain in supply chain management?
Well, like all things, implementing blockchain into the supply chain will have its downsides. Firstly, just off the basis, it requires a lot of money to just simply install it. This even includes staffing new people who have the expertise to use the blockchain technology and training current employees to know how to use the blockchain technology. This requires getting rid of the old system. Even if you somehow manage to find enough money to do all of this, you actually have to start the change. This sounds obvious, but it's a lot harder than one might think. For example, if we look back to Walmart, our reoccurring example, they had to notify their entire supply chain months in advance before they made the final switch in September 2019. Now, months in advance may not sound like a lot, but just to implement one little thing into a supply chain actually relatively is. Now, it could be argued Walmart is quite a large company, as I've mentioned before. So of course it would take months and months to do this. But then the same thing can be argued the other way. I mean, it's a large company. It should have the facilities and the efficiency to do it quickly. Now, this just shows the ups and downs of implementing blockchain into a supply chain and just shows also the long process of actually doing it. So while it may help us in the long run, in the short run, it will be a difficult process.
Thank you, Leila. Now, moving on to Pranav, what are the advantages of blockchain in the shipping industry? Something we haven't talked about yet.
Yes, I believe that there are three main advantages to implementing the blockchain in the shipping industry. The first one is reliability, because the blockchain-based tracking system is much more accurate because it enables all members of the platform to see the ledger at the same time, and they can have access to that secure data in real time. This means that many parties, such as port authority, carriers, and freight forwarders, can improve their logistics by viewing the whole process of the shipment. Secondly, security is another huge advantage that blockchain provides. All records are individually stored and encrypted on the database. This means that any validated record in a blockchain is irreversible and cannot be changed. This means that the documents exchanged in real time on the blockchain cannot be altered, which significantly reduces the risk of fraud. Finally, the last advantage is the clarity of information. For every shipment, numerous parties and people are involved, and many transactions are executed involving many documents, such as bills of lading, invoices, and proofs of delivery. Blockchain records transactions, tracks assets, and creates a transparent and efficient system for managing these documents.
Thank you. And how do you think smart contracts can help speed up the supply chain?
In shipping, the change from paper contracts to smart contracts could be extremely efficient, as it would save a lot of time. This could allow a certain set of actions to be triggered once conditions have been met, which speed up the slow manual process that we use today. Handling paper trade and manual handling of documents, even when sent by email, fax, or post, slows down logistics and facilitation of trade. Blockchain technology enables the automatic operation of a smart contract with events triggering actions that would otherwise require manual intervention or processing. Digitization of the paperwork exchange process is a cost and time-effective mechanism which can dramatically change the shipping industry forever.
I think that's us from supply chain. I hope you enjoyed our little discussion.
All right, thank you everyone for your really good discussion. I really enjoyed it. And that will be the end of all three categories and themes of blockchain use cases that we have today.
Okay, so again, just before we wrap up the event, I would just like to say a huge congratulations to all the panelists and speakers who have. Now, before we wrap up the event, I would like to say a huge congratulations to the panelists and speakers who have put in an extraordinary amount of effort to make this event such a huge success. It's been an honor to work with such motivated, passionate, and talented individuals and have the opportunity to learn so much from all of you, and again, hear your valuable insights and opinions. I would like to thank all the viewers here as well for watching us and listening to what everyone has had to say. And with that, I would like to wish everyone a very, very good night.
Just following on from what Nanaki has said, I myself was really impressed with all the breadth of information that was discussed today, and I myself have learned so much, and I hope you viewers as well have done as well. I think the quality of this, not only the speeches but the panel discussions and the way it was bouncing back and forth, was really just fascinating, and I learned a lot. And I would just like to thank you all for being here, taking time out of your day to attend this webinar. I wish you all a good night and hope you enjoy your summer.
Yeah, I would also like to say how much I really enjoyed listening to all of you. And you all truly did a really good job in explaining your specific use cases, whether it be a speaker or a panelist. And I wish you good luck for the future and have a good night and great summer, and keep interacting with our Blockchain and Fintech Society's Instagram, and stay tuned for more events in the future.
Following on from what all my colleagues have said, it was honestly such a good experience today, hearing you all speak. And I, again, personally learned so much. It was very enriching. And I hope that the viewers feel the same way as we all do. Honestly, this was a really interesting way to end our blockchain use case week, because there's nothing that we love more than engaging in discussion about this new emerging financial technology. And all your efforts to make this event work have truly been appreciated. Thank you again.